My name is Adam Sibera. I'm from the Czech Republic. My background is in international protection of human rights. And currently, I participate in Team for Ukraine on information analysis and war crime documentation. Yesterday, I arrived from Kharkiv, and today, I would like to speak to you about this job, about propaganda, and about something I call the mental invasion. Information, access to it, and its dissemination has always been a powerful tool of social coercion. Social media and the rise and development in artificial intelligence has made meddling with perception of reality easier than ever. As an analyst focused on Kremlin influence in the 21st century in Central and Eastern Europe, I'm convinced that some of the most insidious attacks towards our European community and our value spectrum come from the deliberate disinformation campaigns of the Kremlin, into which Russia invests over $1.9 billion annually. So, on February 2022, I arrived into Ukraine, into Kyiv, and linked up with the Czech organization, Team for Ukraine, and the Ukrainian organization, Maidan Monitoring Information Center, to counter propaganda and participate on the documentation of war crimes. Psychological terror and information manipulation is a highlight tactic of the Russian war effort. Members of our team have been smeared online, faced abuse, and even death threats. At one point, a pro-Russian Telegram channel called the Nazi Tracker has listed me and several of my colleagues as supposed Nazis or neo-Nazis helping Ukraine in an attempt to shame us, demean our validity, but also to plant artificial evidence of neo-Nazi presence in Ukraine, a narrative Russia has been using to justify its aggressive genocidal war. In comparison to the terror Russia inflicts on Ukrainian people, this is insignificant and negligible, but it does reveal how Kremlin operates with duress and cognitive pressure. Through interviewing locals in liberated territories, collecting evidence near mass graves, and encountering Russian rocket strikes, I've noticed that some of the resilience is rooted in trusting evidence and research, exposing reasoning narratives within the propaganda, and actually communicating them to the public. Kremlin operates with the premise that there is no objective truth, no one can be trusted, and will is implemented by violence. Not giving into this premise has proved to be a crucial factor in the successful repellent of the initial attack on Kyiv, which was based around the presumption of Western division and the expectation that Ukraine will give up. After the so-called 5-day special military operation has failed, the Russian army directed its terror towards the civilian population as well as Ukrainian cities. Again, inhumanity, violence, and death are all tools of Russian tactics in their aspiration to control and subdue people. Our teams gather first-hand information on the field and have been doing so since the war in Donbass and the illegal annexation of Crimea, occupation of Crimea. Together with local volunteers, non-governmental organizations, as well as security forces, we have collected thousands of pieces of evidence proving Russian state terrorism. These range from deliberate rocket attacks on residential area through systemic sexual violence, as well as torture of prisoners of war. In doing so, we have created a unique information network and a repository of material used to debunk, to fact check, map Russian aggression, but most importantly, establish liability. On the beginning of our monitoring missions, which were made possible by the Visegrad Fund, we were often accompanied with frustration and skepticism whether our effort will lead to any concrete conclusion. This has changed recently. General Andrei Rozinsky, commander of the Russian army, has been indicted under Ukrainian legal code, paragraph 437, of leading an aggressive war. This is the man who gave the command to breach Ukrainian sovereign border. This is also the man who gave the order for aerial bombing of residential areas and shelling of civilians, killing innocent people. When Russian liability is established, they often shift focus and bring out historical injustices, contemporary injustices in other countries. They do these through various propaganda mechanisms, including flooding the zone with irrelevant information, whataboutism, or weaponization of history. Russia is capable in doing this due to their undeniable presence in the global media infrastructure. Even with the history, with the experience of recent years, major European media houses remain under the influence of financial conglomerates who are reliant on Russian money. This is the biggest disinformation amplifier. This is the biggest challenge to European unity and to our support towards Ukraine. Incitement, defamation, threats are not anything protected or guaranteed by our rights, and definitely not protected by freedom of speech. Rather, they're acts inferring personal liability. Building civil resilience is the best way to counter both hostile interference, foreign interference, and hateful propaganda. I often come by the opinion that only specific fragments of society are affected by propaganda, actually believe Russian propaganda, and give in to conspiracy theories. Therefore, it is not that big of a deal. This is a fundamental error. For instance, in my native Czechia, over 40% of the population is not overwhelmingly convinced on the events in regards to Ukraine and believe that the truth is somewhere in the middle, a crucial problem. Recently, I came across something I find relatable and I strongly agree with. Kremlin does not need us to believe them. They need us to not believe each other. That is the goal with which they lead this hybrid warfare against us, and trivialization of information warfare is a firm part of it. Resilient civil society, effective security cooperation on a European level, and strategic communication is not only key for winning this war, it is essential for winning the peace. And finally, I would like to dedicate this talk to a friend of mine, experienced volunteer, but most importantly, a great human being and a loving soul, Sergei Shaligin, who was recently killed by a strike from the Herim E-1 Russian rocket system while he was evacuating civilians from heavily shelled Kupiansk. This man delivered tons of humanitarian aid, conducted dozens of rescue missions, and finally gave his life for others. Unfortunately, there are hundreds, if not thousands, like him. Eternal memory to all those heroes. Thank you for your attention. Truth prevails.